some backstory. I've been teaching Intro to Film for about 3 years, 3.5 years now. And my students always ask me if I could do some sort of video training on how to do some of the basic stuff we do in our class, because it's easier to see it visually than it is to see it on paper. We're going to be using Adobe Premiere Pro CC 2017 for this exercise. This is going to be some very basic stuff. I want to try to keep these videos to around 10 minutes. The first thing you want to do in any project is create a new project. Always name it something that you can remember so that you can find the project later. I'm going to call this Exercise 001. I'll explain why I chose 001 later in maybe another project, but I'll cover a little bit here. Also, you want to choose a location to store it that you can find it. Make a new folder here. I'm going to call this Premiere Exercises. Create projects. Now, one of the most important things to know is what type of video format you are capturing from. So right down here, you're going to see capture format. And capture format is super important. Sometimes it will default to say DV, which is digital video. We want to have it on HDV, as the footage that I'm working with here is high definition. Most footage that you'll have worked with in the last, I would say, decade will all be high definition. If you're shooting on mini DV tape or Super 8 or 35mm film or beta, then it would be DV, which is digital video. But for this case, we're going to keep it HDV. Up here, you're going to see scratch discs. Now, under scratch discs, you're going to see several different folders or several different options. Captured video, captured audio, video previews, audio previews, project autosave, CC library downloads, motion graphic templates. Premiere works very different than most Adobe applications. In each Adobe Premiere project, you're going to see that there are several subfolders. Most specifically is the autosaves and the render folders and the various plugins that you might add to it. If you were to send somebody the Adobe Premiere project file, it would not work because the person viewing the project file would not have the raw footage that you are linking to that project. So, we want to make sure that we know where all of these things are stored. And I set it in the exact same spot where I want it to go. Now we are loaded into Adobe Premiere. Now you're going to see in Adobe Premiere we have 4 primary windows. Your project window down here, your source window right here, your timeline or your sequence window, and your program window. The way this works is the project window stores all of your content, your video clips, your music, your JPEG files, animations you might create, you name it. Color correction settings, subclips, and so on. What we're going to do is we're going to double click here, and I am going to search for a particular file that I created. I'm just going to go with the first day's clips. Now you'll see I have a folder down here. In Premiere Pro, it will default to look like this. I don't particularly like this view. When you double click it, it launches it into a new window, and it becomes very, very complicated to follow along with where you are. I like doing it in the list view, and you click the pull down, and you'll see all of your different clips. By hitting the tilde key, which is the key under the escape key, you'll see that I have all of my clips pre-named. I went through the process of naming all these clips using what's called a standard naming convention. As you can see here, I have 001, 002, 003, 004, and I kind of use that in all the different clips because I wanted everything to have a uniformity to it. And also you'll see right here, you're going to see frame rate. There are several different types of frame rates that someone could use. The standard is 30 frames per second, which is for video, or 24 frames per second, which is film look, or now cameras that are digital can shoot 24, and oftentimes you might see 60 frames per second as well. Those are the three primary that most people will use. Now you're going to see over here is our time codes, and it tells you where the video started, where the clip ended, and the duration of the clip. Over here you're going to see video info. This was shot at 1920 by 1080. So if you ever heard on your television you have a 1080p TV or a 1080i TV, that is what they're talking about. It's the aspect ratio. Then you have your audio information, which is 48,000 hertz, which is pretty standard. You might see some devices, like if you shoot on an iPhone, it might be 44,000 hertz. It's just different types of file formats. It's not relevant for this topic, but it's good to know about it. Now I'll hit the tilde key, and I will bring back where I was. So what I want to do first is start finding some clips. I have here a tree that I worked with, and I was playing around with focus and testing off a couple different things and seeing what I liked and what I didn't like. This right here is called a rack focus, where the camera goes from way out of focus to way into focus. So I kind of like this clip as my first clip. What I want to do is I'm going to start it from where it's out of focus, right about here, and hitting the letter I for in point. And I'm going to scroll to where the video comes fully into focus and hold it for a few seconds and hit O for out point. Now I can drag this clip right into my timeline. And here we are. Now we have a couple things we want to do first. For some reason, Adobe Premiere defaults the timeline to name it after the first clip. Well, I don't want that, because when I go to export this, it's going to be looking for tree rack focus 001, and I'm never going to find it. So I'm going to go down here. You'll see this little green square. This is our timeline, and I'm going to call this Premiere Exercise 001, which corresponds to the project name so that I know what I'm talking about. Now, the timeline has been renamed. A couple things that I like to do first. When you click on the timeline, it'll highlight in blue. If you hit Command plus or Control plus on a PC, you can zoom in and you get a little bit of a thumbnail as to what you're working with your video, so that you know what the clip is. And you can pull down right here, and this reveals your audio waveforms. And we have a right and left audio channel. Now, this little slider over here will give us the ability to scale up or scale down on the clip to give us more view of our clips on the timeline. I like to always move my clips away from absolute 0, because the video will start at absolute 0. And sometimes we need it to fade in from black or from blank space, and it's too abrupt to come right into the video. So now we want to go and find another one of our clips. So now I have this waterfall here. It's not the prettiest waterfall, but it works for my purposes right here. I'm watching it through. I can also use the letters L and J to rewind or fast forward, find a particular point that I want. I'm going to go right here and mark my in point. And I'm going to scroll to right about here and mark my out point. Again, using the letters I for in point and O for out point. And then I can drag this clip right into the timeline. Now, as a default, the clips will snap together using what's called the snapping tool, which is right here. It looks like a horseshoe magnet. If I hit my space bar in the timeline, so now I have my first 2 clips dropped in. I want to go find another clip. I'm going to take this clip of this young lady here. Out point. Take that clip, and I'm going to drag and drop it right there. Now we have 3 different clips. So I'm going to go to my effects controls over here. You can also go to the effects panel up here. I like working in the project window. That's just my preference. You can also go here and you'll see your effects up here on the side. I like working in the editing view. It's just my preference. There's no right or wrong way. I'm going to type in dissolve. And you're going to see a bunch of video transitions here. And I'm going to add in a cross dissolve between these 2 clips. You have a couple of freedoms to put it either at the end of one clip, the beginning of another clip, or right smack in the middle like that. I'm going to add another right over here. And then I want to dip to black and dip to black. So now I'm going to roll my playhead, which is the little blue line that you see in the timeline. Hit the space bar. And that's our first edit. Very, very simple. We used I for in point, O for out point, J for rewind, L for fast forward, and let's say we wanted to do something else, and I'll show you one more very important tool. So we'll watch this clip again. And there's a little point where I think we need to make a cut. Right about there. Did you see that? Through the transition, we see the camera move. And I don't like it. So I'm going to delete my transition. I'm going to roll this back to about here. Now pressing the letter C on your keyboard enables the razor blade tool. You can also get this tool right over here. I'm going to add a cut right there. Then I'm going to press the letter V, which is our selection tool, and I'm going to select this portion, hit delete. Now I have removed that area where the camera moves. I'm going to right click in the selection in between the 2 clips, and I'm going to hit ripple delete. This will close the gap between the 2 videos. I'm going to go back over here, drop my dissolve right back in, I'm going to roll this back. You know that first clip is good. Wait and see. Still kind of does it. So what I got to do here, I'm going to do is called the roll edit. By hitting the letter N, I'm going to roll this edit a few spots back. Now her camera moves. So I'm going to trim that out. Letter V. Select, delete, close the gap, and I drop my transition back in. Let's see. And there we go. Takes a bite of her lunch, and it fades right out. And that is your first video. What you'd want to do now, save your project, and you're done. Next time, we're going to add some text and music into this video. Thank you.